Yeah, so autopilot features have started to be integrated into a lot of vehicles now, not just Teslas.
No.
I mean, apparently, according to some stuff I read in some reviews, that the Tesla one is a lot better than any others.
Yeah, interesting.
But I haven't used them myself. And these features essentially allow a Tesla, for example, to stay in a lane, switch lanes, avoid traffic in front of it, but does rely ultimately on a human driver being there to kind of keep watch over it. It's not totally autonomous.
And there's been those videos of people using the autopilots
where they shouldn't.
It's basically the people using it where they shouldn't, in situations they shouldn't be using it, but where they've had to, like, at the last second intervene to stop some kind of collision or something. So,
there was a video of someone driving along, I think a sort of one lane way. It was two lanes going, one going each way, and the car, it just flipped out round one corner. It was following the lanes, it was driving him round. He sat there like, this is awesome, and then it just decides suddenly there's another car oncoming, and it's designed for highways, so multiple lanes of cars running the same way, to like swing into this oncoming car, and he just grabs a wheel.
Sketchy. That's really sketchy. That just goes to show that
they're not, and
Tesla were very clear
they never designed it for that, and they explicitly told people. But obviously, people are going to abuse it to start with.
Yeah, which is kind of the risk you take in rolling out this kind of function to people who already have these cars. Yeah, because people will inevitably push it.
Although I haven't heard of any accidents that have been
that's true,
relating to them. But I mean, it's amazing what the ability of these things to get better over time. People have been talking about how when it first rolled out, the autopilot thing that they've got, it's like a week later, 2 weeks later, it was already way better, because they have a kind of a fleet learning thing where they're all communicating with each other. And another thing is that these high resolution maps they're starting to generate. So normally you have kind of satellite images, and maybe, I don't know if they integrate street view type things, but they know from long periods of people driving down the same road, they get very high resolution GPS data of where all the cars are driving in the lanes. So you don't just get satellite images, you have real time GPS images of where all the driving lanes are and how people drive and where there are accidents, all these types of things. So it builds, so you get these high resolution maps from people driving the same routes over and over and over. So yeah, we'll definitely be looking at these things becoming extremely good very, very quickly.
And like stuff like
that's why the Tesla one is so much better than the others. One of the reasons is because it's able to do this on a fleet scale.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's not like each car learning from its own experiences. The whole thing's centralized, so the entire fleet is adding to that kind of bank of learning. And then these GPUs and things that like NVIDIA are producing that are going to be churning out like really high power deep learning stuff to understand the kind of infinite range of scenarios you might encounter when you're driving around.
Yes, exactly. The deep learning thing is really crucial to automatic or to fully autonomizing cars. Yeah. Just because, like you were saying earlier, the number of possibilities. So when they rolled out that Tesla autopilot, they knew of a certain number of possibilities, and they hard-coded in a certain number of possibilities in which it would avoid, turn around, go around corners, do certain things. But obviously they don't know every real-world situation. So they've got to allow it to learn and fleet learn from all these things and get better doing it that way, because that's basically training. This is the kind of new revolution in deep learning AI, is to train these AIs to learn themselves and to become more autonomous themselves. So we'll be seeing these kind of autopilot things getting a lot better. And people integrating these types of deep learning things more and more into autopilots, and like then the NVIDIA chips allow them to run more efficiently these types of algorithms. Yeah,
I wonder if so. There's the Google car is another. So that's the thing. Another autonomous vehicle. They're
going for, well, I mean, Tesla will eventually, but that Google car is going full explicitly for autonomous driving, not just autopilot driving. The Google car looks, I think we might have talked about it before, but it looks kind of like it's like a little happy bubble car.
Yeah, it's
thing.
For like
almost looks like it's got a little smiley face. Yeah, and they've gone for that because it's a non-threatening kind of look. They don't want to create like a sort of thing that looks like a stealth fighter, like Lamborghini type thing. It just looks totally bad.
Into
got like fire coming out the exhaust,
like handbrake turn, smoke coming out of it. Like, please get in. It's like this is going to roll up. I wonder if it'll have a little voice like, "Welcome to the Google car."
Yeah, probably. And inside there's no steering wheel. There's nothing.
That's cool.
You get in and there's one button, which is go, And then
how do you use your
phones,
phone or something?
Yeah.
That's fucking cool.
So you'll just get in. You'll have tethered yourself to that car.
Yeah.
Or whatever, presumably, and
you
then
tell
you
it
get
where you
in,
wanna go.
and then you press go, and
Yeah.
it just drives you there.
That's fucking amazing. I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
But this is the thing: the Google car, and so the Tesla fleet. So Tesla have said that their cars are ready to be fully autonomous, and they just they're just waiting for either a software update or for the deep learning algorithms to become good enough to be able to do full autonomy.
I'm not sure. Have they? So I think
they've made it sound like that's the
yeah.
case.
I thought I had heard something where they said that they might need either a new generation of Tesla or like some additional hardware to make it fully autonomous. So
I've heard Elon say something like...
I think they probably have, and I think I've heard other things as well. I've heard both sides, I think, but I'm not quite sure where.
It might just be that what I'm talking about is a bit ambiguous, and it's been said in such a way that, like, okay, maybe if you pick it apart... they might
be able to do it with what they've got, but I know that...
Because he was saying that what he wants... in a few years, or even less, is to be able to, summon your car from the other side of the country.
Yes.
And it will just drive to you.
Yeah. But I'm sure...
And charge itself on the way and all that kind of stuff.
Yes. But I do think they may have talked about having to have extra hardware to do that. Anyway,
because
they might not need to.
The Google car does have hardware that the Teslas don't have.
Yes, it has kind of like a local radar type thing. Or is it radar or something like LiDAR-y type thing? Like a spinning thing on top, which are able to generate, to work out where everything is in 3D in a much further distance than the Teslas can. The Teslas just have forward-facing cameras, a forward-facing radar, and then ultrasonic sensors all around the car, so it can detect things coming close to it, whereas the Google car has like a 3D image generated of everything and a really wide radius around it.
That's cool.
So even pedestrians, like if you see the image of the thing that's generated by and it recognizing things,
little
it's
boxes
like
and
miles, like really far away, it's picking up where people are on the pavements
so cool.
and little dogs and all sorts of crazy stuff, and that you have to have that for autonomous vehicles.
It's navigating a really, really complex environment that I mean, as I've said a few times, has basically an infinite number of possible scenarios. Yeah, and so it has to react to all of them. So that Google car, I think, is going to be available to the public around kind of 2020 or something like that. Right. So it's a little way away. Well, I mean, 4 years. We said 5 to 10 years until autonomous vehicles are available. I mean, that's 2020 still seems like a long way off to me. It's like, quick, be available now.
It's like 4 years away.
Yeah, it'll happen so quickly.
Yeah.
So are people going to buy is it going to be the kind of thing that everyone buys, like a Google car, or is it going to be that there's a network of them that you just like taxis?
That's very that's I presume it's going to go one way, but that's an interesting question. Some people might buy their own autonomous vehicles.
Yeah. But first, people might, I guess.
They might. But it does seem like it makes more sense to run these things in a sort of Uber style way.
Yeah.
So the rise of kind of ride sharing apps is changing the way we get around, basically. It's made taxis cheaper, basically. But in the event of having autonomous vehicles, the chances are that they're probably going to be electric. They're probably going to be the Google car is electric. They're probably going to be extremely cheap.
Yeah. Because you won't have for a start, you don't have to pay a driver's salary.
No, and they're very rarely going to get into accidents and things, probably, and all this.
Yeah.
So you're probably the chances that what's probably, I think, going to happen is that you aren't going to have people owning their cars in most major cities.
Yeah.
They'll simply just be hailing these things with an Uber type app, maybe Uber itself.
Yeah.
And an autonomous vehicle will turn up and take them everywhere, and it will cost like £1 or £2 a journey.
Which is, it's like a fundamental change in the way that most people kind of get around. I mean, it already exists in the sense of taxis now, kind of that kind of thing.
A ride sharing is getting us closer to that, because it's bringing down the price to the point where it's not as cheap as getting a bus or a train, really, for longer distances but it's getting to the point where people are using it instead of those. Yeah. And you don't, it's just very, very successful. The market seems to want it very much.
And certainly when you have autonomous electric vehicles that you don't have a driver, it's going to be way cheaper still than Uber now, probably.
Yeah.
So it will make very little sense for most people to own a car.
Probably. I can imagine that being the case. I can imagine some people wanting them, and how the economy scales for long distance journeys. So if you're doing journeys between cities,
but it's not going to be worth owning a car just for that.
It probably. I don't. I
There'll
can't
probably
see
other
it
transit
being worth
systems, like like trains or whatever, or
What about
even more mad stuff. But
what about people who live in like the countryside, away out of the city?
It might be different for people like that. It might still be worth owning your own vehicle if you want to live rurally.
Just because these things, I mean, they eventually presumably will be so ubiquitous that you'll be able to hail them from anywhere.
Yeah.
But if you live in the arse end of nowhere, then there's not necessarily going to be a fleet of these things. Like,
I mean, if you have to wait for like a car to drive for like 3 hours from the nearest city to get to you, then you can be like, oh, fuck that.
Yeah.
Might as well have my own car.
Exactly. So Uber covers certain cities, but not every city. It's only just come into where we live.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a while for that coverage to get up.
Sure.
Whether it will at some point cover absolutely everywhere, I don't know. I mean, maybe, like you have a petrol station everywhere. You also have like a charging point and a little fleet of Google type cars.
Yeah,
that
like
are as common as petrol stations, and that's how people get around those things.
Yeah, looking way in the future, I mean, it's hard to predict much, but you probably will have things like this available almost anywhere. Yeah. But in the kind of more near term.
Yeah, in the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah, by that point, 10, 20 years, I reckon that in most cities,
yes,
people won't really have cars.
Yeah, I think in most big cities they won't.
Yeah, and I mean, not only that, but it will be the main way to get around as well, probably, rather than buses and trains and things like that within a city, because suddenly you have much less traffic on the roads, and the traffic flow is all autonomous. Yeah. It will be much more optimized in terms of how it gets around.
Oh god, it'll be so much better.
It won't be like struggling through rush hour across city in an autonomous car. It will be able to go at the maximum sort of speed of these things, basically.
Yeah. They'll all be talking.
The
to
journey
each other.
time won't be different.
You might not even have red lights or green lights. You just have stuff just like sort of cruising through, like just sort of like dodging each other by millimeters.
But which is all fine.
Which is fine, but they're just like, it's just all happening.
Yeah.
It looks, and if you looked at it, it looks, from a distance like it's impossible. If it was with people, it would be. But they all know this. They're all
they're all communicating with each other.
All perfectly safe, but they're all just
Yeah.
Like an intersection's just crazy. I guess they'd still have to stop for pedestrians to cross.
Yes. They would. That's going to be interesting. Maybe you have to have like pedestrians sort of separated from the traffic a bit more than they are now.
Well, you mean like more bridges and stuff? Yeah, maybe.
Or
on smaller roads that won't be possible.
That's a big that's a big change in like the way cities are built and stuff. So that's not going to happen immediately, and these things are going to be on the roads before anything like that happens. So they're going to have to be able to deal with pedestrians crossing and stuff before we get to that kind of level. Of course, yeah. But yeah, like so I mean, this is something that's going to happen soon, probably.
Yeah. Did you see changes? That sort of? I suppose related to that, there was during the NVIDIA kind of conference thing I watched some of, they talked about having racing autonomous cars. So man. Did you see the picture of it?
Yes.
It's kind of like, if you haven't, go and look for it. It's
fucking cool.
Yeah, it's kind of Formula E type. So it's an electric Formula racing thing, part of that series, and they're essentially giving. I think there's like 10 teams or something. They all get given the same car.
It's the same hardware.
Exactly the same hardware. And then they race in a race. But the only thing that they're allowed to change is the software. So that whatever software they have, they are trying to basically optimize it to beat each other in this race. So you have this kind of like autonomous race. You could even have not only cars becoming autonomous, like racing drivers.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's almost like its own sport that like branches off from. Like, it might not be the end of human-driven racing. That's probably still going to be great. But this kind of new branch of autonomous racing, I mean, presumably you could build these things to be faster and it's just a much more like high energy like race than
you haven't got to worry about the health of anyone inside.
No.
You just blast it round.
Yeah, and these things look fucking cool.
Yeah, and it'll be optimizing itself as it goes.
Yeah.
Like it would probably end up being better than a human driver. So,
yeah, probably. Because it will always just drive like the absolute perfect line.
But it'd be interesting because all the software people are going to be trying to not only make like the optimum driving speed, which might be the easier part of it, but also dealing with the kind of tactics of other teams to kind of get in their way and like all this kind of interchange between them. Like, how's that going to work? You're all trying to get in front of each other.
That's complex stuff.
Coded very differently to a normal autonomous vehicle, which will simply try and follow a line and stay out the way of other cars, and there's much more strategy involved, and like planning ahead, and I mean that's the sort of thing. They might deep learn these cars against each other, but they're all going to be doing that as well. So you kind of, whoever's got the most advanced like deep learning algorithms would get better. That's going to be really cool.
I mean, and that's the kind of thing. If that becomes like a big thing, let's say people get really into it and turns into like a big spectator sport.
Yeah,
which it might not.
I'm not sure.
But if it does, like it could potentially drive a lot of innovation on the software side of things. Yeah. Because that's what drives it.
Yeah, I mean some of the earliest advances in autonomous vehicles were made by this, like they were doing races across like the Mojave Desert and stuff. So was it the Mojave Desert? It was somewhere. They were doing these big autonomous drives, and they worked out from these races that the teams that were winning them were the teams that had the best software, not the teams that had. They had some teams that had like a kind of big kind of Hummer type thing with like insane amounts of hardware. And they were getting beaten by the cars that had much less hardware and much better software.
Right.
So that pushed that type of autonomous vehicles, the autonomous vehicles we now see, in the direction more of software development, and how crucial that is to autonomous vehicles. Yeah. So races like these will certainly help the development of algorithms and things to help these things learn how to drive. Yeah,
definitely. Especially maybe it doesn't make much difference. I was going to say, especially because it all happens at such high speed, but then again, that might not really matter because computation happens essentially at the speed of light. So
yes, that's true. True. But it might have teach how to deal with.
But having to react to things happening in the real world in real time when you're traveling at like 200 miles an hour or something.
Yeah, I mean you might in the future have extremely high motorways may not have the same speed limits anymore. Not 70 miles an hour anymore. If you've got
like hundreds of miles an hour.
Yeah, you're just as fast as they can go because these things are they haven't got the human driving areas, so they're much safer.
It's all completely fine. And that's Minority Report. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
All the autonomous vehicles in that are just travelling at ridiculous speeds, like vertical walls and stuff, where the interior capsules just stays stable.
Sort of gimbaling itself. Yeah.
That's what I want. I want that.
Yeah. Exactly. And
Bring it on.
I mean, think of all the advantages of an autonomous car in terms of your driving experience. So obviously you're not driving, which is some people will want to still do, but they can do that on private land.
Yeah, that would be a thing you do for fun.
Yeah.
Like a bit like
because it's a pain in the arse.
Hundreds of years ago, everyone had to ride horses to get around everywhere. Yeah. And now the only time people ride horses is for fun.
Yeah. It would just be a thing you do for fun, which is fine. So people don't need to worry about that disappearing as a fun activity. Yeah. But you just won't have the slog to work, or whatever. Yeah. If you don't want to drive, although it may get to a point where you're banned from driving on the road.
Might do.
Certainly, and we'll talk about that maybe when we talk about safety. Just imagine how awesome driving is going to be when you don't have to worry about the safety of what's going on around you. You can you can basically drink and get in a car. You can get in a car a load of beers.
Yeah, like you wouldn't need to worry about like designated drivers on nights out.
Play music. It would be like you just hang out in the car.
Yeah. Yeah, you just hang out in the car, and the seats probably like facing each other or whatever.
Exactly.
Like you just
have a little table in the middle, get some cards out.
Yeah. Or like watch a film or whatever.
Yeah. Put a VR headset on.
Yeah, anything. It's gonna be really, and you won't think anything of it. I mean, I guess you kind of act in that way on like a train journey or something or whatever already.
Well, it's different though. In a train, it's not your own space.
Yes.
You're with other people. I suppose if you own your own autonomous car. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Like even if you don't road trip. I suppose there's some joy in a road trip in the driving.
Yeah, I mean, I quite enjoy driving. Sometimes, for that kind of thing. But I mean, I don't really care. Like, I'm happy to hand that over to some autonomous thing.
But if on a long drive, when you're doing a drive with your mates, would you rather be driving or sitting in, everyone facing each other, just basically sitting around? Obviously, you'd rather pick, essentially what it's like.
Because at the end of the day, even though long distance driving can be all right sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it is tiring and like it feels like a bit of an undertaking.
Yeah.
Whereas this will be, you just get in the car and chill out and like chat and go to sleep if you want. Yeah. Whatever. That's going to be great.
Yeah. I was also thinking, when you have like an emergency situation where someone has like a heart attack or there's some reason, think how much faster either ambulances or getting yourself to hospital would be in an autonomous car world.
Yeah.
Because you basically get in, even if you're like badly injured, press the button that takes you to, like, there might be like
a special emergency
button that takes you to the nearest hospital. And all the other cars, they all have these emergency buttons in the cars, and they all communicate with each other.
Yeah, so they know that there's
so they know that there's an emergency coming through. So they all allow that car to go absolutely the fastest route, and just allow it to go through everything.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be so that's really going to be really important.
And another thing I was thinking as well was if you're in this world where no one owns a car and you're just ordering cars to get everywhere, like you have an alarm set for every day. So you have an alarm set for like weekdays, say like Monday to Friday at 7:30 or whatever, your alarm goes off for work or whatever. You could have every day like a car is booked to turn up at your front door at a certain time. And this every day at that time your car will arrive like clockwork. It'll just be there. You get in, go to work, and then same coming home every day from work. So you don't have to like order it on the spot. It just turns up ready to go, and you get a little notification to say like, oh, your car's ready.
Exactly.
Oh, man,
that sort of thing will presumably you be able to schedule. Can you do that with Uber?
You might be able to do that now with Uber.
I don't think you can. I've not seen that on
like a regular thing.
I imagine you can't.
I don't know.
But you can certainly imagine
it's going to be interesting. Another thing I was thinking, interesting with people who are like, I don't know, like people who want to take like dogs walking or something, like, for example, you get in a car with some dogs and they're all covered in like mud and shit and stuff, and like what's your nice little autonomous taxi going to think about that?
That's true.
Or like
people are going to come back from muddy walks.
Muddy walks, or
and just getting to a communal taxi and just like cover it in crap. And also people are going to be treating them like shit as well.
Or say you've been like caving or like surfing and you've just got stuff that's a bit like crappy and wet and muddy or whatever, playing football or something.
I mean, there's obviously solutions. You can have a specific type of autonomous car. The thing is, people left alone in autonomous cars, like how are they going to behave? How are they going to try and wreck the place? I mean, you could obviously make it tougher and make it easy to clean and have an automated way of cleaning it, basically.
Maybe.
Or the answer is you have your own autonomous vehicles.
That might,
I think that
might be a transitionary period at least when that is the case and people have their own.
The situations where you have people who don't own their own cars is going to be like really prevalent in cities, but it might be less prevalent in areas where you go out to the country and things. So you might, on your daily city life, you might not own your own car. The people who are always in cities, but you might still get people who do own.
And it might not be that hard to stop people like vandalizing and stuff, because like you just have cameras in the cars, and you're just going to get in trouble if you do that.
And if you start trying to break it, it just locks the door and drives you to a police station.
Yeah. Pretty much. Or it has like a little cattle prod that comes out and like zaps
it just
you.
electrocutes you. Or it just stops and just starts filling itself up with water.
Self-destructing.
That would be interesting though, because you definitely get drunk people getting in it and just sort of trying to trash it. People do that in taxis normally with a person inside.
They do.
How you commit crime and those types of things. But it'd be interesting.
It's interesting. It's either going to be
little problems.
It's either going to be easy to solve in the sense that that these systems will be in place that everyone knows exist, and like if you do something bad, then you're just going to get driven straight to a police station or something. Or they will just get trashed.
They'll definitely have cameras.
And they'll have to be built like really functional and sturdy, like the inside of like a subway carriage or something. That's just a bit like functional and just a bit crap and not that comfortable, just because it's cheap and sturdy. I don't know. I guess covered in graffiti. I don't know.
And who's going to check these things? Like the either the camera feeds coming in, or when they come back and they're covered in, who's going to clean them and that sort of stuff? I guess the companies would get people to do that, or how you automate that. I'm not sure.
There's lots of these questions, and there's even more like if you think about a world in which there's tons of autonomous cars on the road, as well as these questions, there's questions of safety. So like
there's loads of potential sort of problems and safety and all sorts of things. I mean, for a start, if a car has a crash, like who's responsible for the crash? If you're not driving the car, so you can't be responsible for the crash. How is it your fault if you're not driving the car? It has to be the company's responsibility, presumably.
Yeah, you'd think so. I mean,
which makes it interesting because.
Some laws are going to need to change in a big way.
Yeah, and I think they are. In the US, there was it the federal government enacted something that allowed autonomous vehicles to be driven in certain areas when there was some resistance from some states to it. Right. I can't remember the exact laws because there was problems trying to develop autonomous cars that could drive across state boundaries, and some states wouldn't allow that and some states would, and it was kind of a bit, so the federal government just came in and went, no, it's going to be allowed or something. I can't remember the exact whether it was allowing cars without humans in to ever drive or exactly, or just test drive with humans in. I'm not sure. But yeah, so working out those libel things.
Yeah, I mean
that's easier in a world where it's just autonomous cars.
It is, yes.
But it's much more potentially more difficult where you've got
like a human driver in an autonomous car involved in an incident.
Yeah.
I mean, probably that's almost certainly going to be the human driver's fault in that
recently,
kind of situation.
Recently Google had an accident. And their cars have been in accidents before, but they'd always been, according to them, and I think actually had always been resolved legally as being the fault of someone else who had just driven into the back of them.
Yeah.
But they did have one where their car drove into the side of a bus. Didn't do any damage really. It just screwed the light up on the car. Didn't do anything bad. But that was an error from Google, a software error.
Right.
And those things will get rarer and rarer. And by the time they're consumer ready, I mean they'll be almost non-existent.
Yeah. But yeah, if you have a company like running a fleet of autonomous taxis throughout a city, surely they're going to be the ones that have to basically be responsible if there is anything that happens. You would think.
Yeah.
Say in the same way that, like we were just saying about cleaning them out and stuff like that.
I mean, they should be. Autonomous cars are going to have to be like safer than a normal car, like a lot safer than a normal car for anyone to get in them. Yes, like an order of magnitude safer in terms of the amount of times it undergoes accidents. I did read, maybe it was Elon Musk again talking about it, but how potentially in a world where you have all autonomous vehicles and the probability of you having a crash is extremely low, like almost non-existent, that you don't even have crash structures on cars anymore. You rip out all that's just weight. You're wasting essentially. So the efficiency of the car is worse.
Yeah.
So you're driving around in these sort of like ultra lightweight, really weak tin can things.
That if you actually did crash into something,
it would just crumple
obliterate.
Up. Yeah. But you just won't crash.
Yeah. Yeah, like the same kind of possibility of being hit by a meteor or something.
Yeah. Or an aeroplane's not going to survive a crash if it crashes. You have lots of and you engineer out lots of ways that would avoid crashing, but you get to the point where the end point of it actually hitting something is so incredibly low that you don't bother putting a crash structure in.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting kind of thought. I mean, it's obviously we're way off that, and you'd have to, in that scenario, you would have to ban people driving cars on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's only as safe as like the
environment
safe.
Around it.
Yeah.
Exactly. The least safe person on the road is the person who's going to cause the crash.
Yeah.
So
and that would be the human.
And that would be the human.
Especially if the whole thing is one big system and it's all communicating with itself.
Yeah, and you can imagine in the future, the idea of banning people from driving is seems like a violation of your rights at the moment.
Yes,
your freedom to drive on the road.
Yeah.
But in a world, if you imagine a world where the only people that are killed on roads are from human crashes. They're from humans that are screwing up. They're drunk at the wheel, whatever. They fall asleep, etc.
Yeah.
And they cause crashes and kill people. In that world, I can imagine people beginning to realise that, like, why are we just letting people die for these idiots who want to stay on the road and drive? Like, it makes no sense to have this unnecessary deaths.
It's just causing, like, so many deaths every year.
And
it's so easy to stop it, just ban it.
And everyone else who's in autonomous vehicles are not responsible for this. It's just this, like, minority of people.
You
can imagine it becoming general public
opinion.
The public
pressure being there to actually go ahead and ban it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, in a very similar way to, well, maybe not, in a similar way to drink driving. I mean, everyone, like 50 years ago, everyone would drink and then drive. And it was like totally socially acceptable to do that. And then it gets to a point, it's like, hang on a minute. This is causing loads of deaths.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Obviously, we should ban that. And everyone realised that was a good idea, even people who might have done it before. So yeah, I mean, I totally agree.
It's like smoking in bars or these types of things. You're taking away someone's freedom.
Initially, it seems like that, and then suddenly everyone starts.
But what
to
you're
realise,
actually doing is allowing more people to live.
Yeah, it gives
which is a freedom.
Yeah, it gives you freedom from dying.
Yeah, freedom from being at risk when you go to work of being killed.
Yeah, and if you want to go and drive a car, there'll be places to go drive cars and have fun doing it.
Yeah.
So
I imagine that.
I think it's definitely plausible.
In terms of those moral issues as well, there's other interesting areas. So, an autonomous vehicle is going to have to make decisions for you about, in certain situations, potentially that might involve either hurting you or hurting someone else.
Yeah, it's like the trolley dilemma or whatever it's called.
That's
what I think it's a philosophical thing about like a philosophical problem about like a train hurtling down tracks, and there's like a I think what is it? There's like a guy on the track.
Okay.
One person on the track. No, sorry, I'm not remembering this. No, I got it. So there's a trolley hurtling down a track, and on the track are 5 people.
Right.
Like tied up or something, just there on the track, and they are going to get killed by this thing.
Yes.
And if you don't do anything, that's it. It's just going to plow through these people, and they're all going to die. 5 of them. But you've got a lever, and the lever diverts the trolley onto a different track, and on that different track is one person.
Yeah.
So the question is, do you pull the lever and by your direct action kill one person, or do you not do anything and let 5 people die? And that's the trolley dilemma, and there's variations of it, and that kind of applies to like the decisions that like an autonomous car might have to make. Like, do you decide to let the one person that the passengers in the car die, or do you take some drastic action to save them and kill like a bunch of other people, or I don't know, like a child or something, something.
So so say you're driving on like a coastal road, and you either the choice is either hit into a car that's oncoming because it's, I don't know, skidding it, or drive off the edge of a cliff.
Yeah.
And the car incoming has, like, I don't know, loads of children in it or something. And it's probably, but it calculates at the speed you're probably going to kill quite a few of those people inside that car. Or it can plunge you off the edge of the cliff and kill just one person. Who makes those decisions about coding that stuff into the autonomous vehicle? Like, you have to imbue it with rules in which it follows. Yeah. And so there has to be some kind of consensual agreement as to what those rules are. And
there's 2 ways of doing it. There's either you give it some kind of way of basically assigning value to certain
outcomes. Numbers of lives, age of person. But then how do you distinguish between age of person?
Yeah, it's going to have to be able
type
to do
of
all
person.
Of that. The other option is always save the passenger. Yeah. Regardless, always protect the passenger.
And that's interesting because you imagine, I mean, who's going to buy or get in an autonomous car that they know under a certain circumstance is going to kill them?
Nobody. And that's the reason I think that surely the second option, is the only really viable way to do it. Yeah. You have to program them to always, under any circumstances,
try and save the passengers.
Surely. Because, you're not going to get into a car that you think, if someone walks out in front of me in the street, it might decide to just crash into the side of a building and kill me. Yeah. I'm not going to get in that.
Yeah. And but then again, like, is it morally right to tell you would try and not do this, but say there's the way it's got to dodge something, okay? And to save the passenger, the only thing it can do is like drive down a pavement that's got like 60 people on it and just like plow through them, just like some sort of like GTA style murdering spree. And that's the only thing it can do to sort of save the passenger.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty morally dodgy, isn't it? Yeah.
Some really hard questions.
It's really
hard to have to answer.
It's really tricky.
But I think fundamentally, I agree, is that people aren't going to get in things that are going to decide to kill them. Like, I'm not going to get in something that's under certain circumstances just going to decide that my life is worth less than. Otherwise, I'll get in another car that will decide that for me. It's an open market. People, I mean, unless there's a
law about it.
Yeah, exactly. There's a top-down law.
Yeah, it's a really hard problem.
Very interesting problem, though.
Yeah.
It's got so many different things you've got to weigh up. And profiling, like you said earlier, I mean, that's so interesting. Like, is a child's life worth more than an adult's life? Is a certain type of adult's life worth more than another type of adult's life?
Yeah, do you need to know something about their like backstory or something?
A pregnant woman, is that worth, because there's sort of 2 people there, maybe?
Maybe
is she worth more than, I don't know, some guy walking along who's not pregnant? I mean,
maybe that person's like the head of some like innovative company that's going to like cure cancer or something, or like, I don't know. How do you know? How can you make that judgment?
They won't know that much information. Well, maybe
of course. Maybe that's what I'm saying. They won't.
Maybe they would have that sort of information. Everyone's chipped.
Yeah, maybe.
And it's like it's just scanning around, it's got all these readings coming up. Like, this isn't a really important person. This is not. I mean, that sounds awful, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does sound awful.
And you wouldn't want that. That sounds like a horrible society.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of deciding.
Well, I was only saying that. I was saying that to illustrate how it's almost impossible to give.
You can't weigh up
proper
human life.
numerical value on human life. It's impossible. It's impossible. Because you need to know. You need to know information about how many people they know, and you know, it turns into like an infinitely receding problem.
Yeah.
So like, do you have cars that mow down 60 people to save the passenger? Is that the way forward? I guess you just have to remember that the society we're talking about is one in which that kind of situation would be very, very, very unlikely and very, very rare. And you just engineer out all the possible risks.
It might be it's rare, but it's less rare in the early days.
Yeah.
When there's more human
human interaction. Yeah.
And that's when you've got to make your decisions early. Because that's going to be the most dodgy time anyway, when people are unsure of what the technology and everything. Yeah. That's when all your problems are going to occur. As you get later on, and it's all autonomous, then they become so rare it's sort of you don't care.
Yeah, and the whole thing will run itself, and you'll never have these scenarios coming up. But you're right. In the first few years, which is coming up soon, and the things going to be on the road. They're going to be on the road, soon. So people may, in those situations, get in something that would just choose to kill them on the basis that it's it's far rarer than an aeroplane crash. Yeah, far rarer than a crash now in a car that you're driving.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you make that risk every time you get in a car anyway. So
you do, but it's different.
Like you say, you get in a car that I'm driving. You're accepting that I might kill you.
Yes, I am accepting that.
So it's kind of like that. Although there is a psychological difference.
You can't
to a lot of people.
I can talk to you though, as you're saying, a psychological difference. I can talk to you and be convinced that you aren't going to try and kill me in a certain situation, but I can't do that with an autonomous vehicle.
There's something about the thought that the AI driving the car might make a conscious decision that killing you is the right thing to do.
Yes.
That's quite scary, I think, to a lot of people,
rightly
like me included.
Yeah.